Last week, the bears came into the markets with a vengeance, dropping things significantly hard. And on Thursday, it looking like we were headed for a full-on correction. But come Friday, the bull said, not so fast. It jumped in and ran the market back up, leaving us with the question heading into this week, where are we going? Are we in store for more bearish pain to the downside? Are the bulls back in position to run this thing up higher? Find out all of that and more in today's Sunday setup. Let's go. All right, so this is actually the second time that I'm recording this video because the first one didn't stick and I lost it. So this is number 2, but we're going to start here with earnings and see what the big reports are this week that I'm paying attention to. And really, even though there are a lot of companies reporting, there's just a handful of companies that I'm really watching, and that's going to start on Tuesday with Robinhood, who will report after close. They've been beat up quite significantly down below that 200 simple moving average. I want to see how they're going to respond. And ultimately, depending on how the crypto market does, is how Robinhood's going to do. Watch and see what transpires with Bitcoin leading up to that report. And then I'm also going to be watching Spotify, who will be reporting before open on Tuesday. And last year, there was a significant correlation between Spotify and Netflix, meaning, however Spotify ran, Netflix ran, however Netflix ran, Spotify ran. So let's see if we can get a positive report from Spotify, if maybe that can spark a little bump there on Netflix. But I am watching those two reports on Tuesday. And then on Wednesday, you'll get Shopify reporting. I used to watch that one pretty closely. T-Mobile, Paulo, I know you've been trading that one like crazy, so keep an eye on for that one. AppLovin will be reporting a close on Wednesday. Cisco will be reporting a close, but really nothing that I'm super excited about there on Wednesday. But Thursday is going to be a fun day because Coinbase is going to be reporting. They are beat up pretty significantly. Again, very dependent on what's happening in the Bitcoin space. So we'll see how they will move off of their report. And again, if Bitcoin runs, if crypto runs leading into that report, that is good news for Coinbase. You do have Rivian going to be reporting, which it's really much of a nothing burger whenever they report. You also get DraftKings reporting as well. And it happens to be Super Bowl week. So, hey, happy Super Bowl Sunday. And let me know in the comments, who are you picking this weekend? Is it the Patriots? Is it the Seahawks? I really don't have a dog in the hunt. You guys know that I am a Steelers fan, but I would like to see the Seahawks get a win. And then we come over here on Friday. Moderna is reporting before open, and that's really it. Next week is going to be the big earnings week with NVIDIA reporting, and that's going to be on Wednesday, the 25th, and everybody will be waiting with bated breath to see how they will report. Now, let's go take a look at next week. On Monday, there's not going to be much data here, but we are going to get 4 Fed speakers. Fed Waller, Mirren, Bostic, and then Mirren's going to speak again. So just pay attention to this to see if there are any clues that come out of this in regards to federal funds policy. Are we going to see some clues being revealed in terms of what the rate cutting cycle will be? Right now, the market is pricing in a cut for June. Let's see if there's anything that changes based on what is reported by these Fed speakers on Monday. And then on Tuesday, February 10th, we are going to get retail sales here at 8:30 a.m. That will move the markets. And one thing to pay attention to here when you're looking at the TradingView data, you can see how it has these bars listed here. When one bar is filled in with the blue color, that means it's of semi-importance 2, moderate importance 3, it's highly important. So that's just one way that you can interpret this information. So we will get retail sales there on Tuesday. On Wednesday, we are going to get the data that we were supposed to get last Friday here, and that is going to be non-farm payrolls at 8:30 and unemployment rate, which we know that the Fed is paying close attention to what is happening in the labor market in terms of determining what they're going to do with rate cuts. If the labor market is weakening, then we will see potentially the rate cut possibility increasing for June, and maybe even another cut creeping in there sooner. So pay attention to those reports that are going to happen on Wednesday. They will move the markets. And then when we hop over to Thursday, we're going to get existing home sales. Again, 3-bar piece of news at 10 a.m. But the big day is going to be on Friday. And ladies and gentlemen, it is going to be spooky, spooky Friday the 13th, the day before Valentine's Day, I have to point out. So make sure you get your special someone something, show them that you love them and you care about them. But here on Friday, we are getting none other than CPI, Consumer Price Index. And if this is a hot report, get ready for the market to drop. If it's cool, get ready for the market to pump. That will be coming at 8:30. So just make sure you're ready, because that is going to inject some volatility into the markets. All right, so here we go. We're jumping into the charts, and I already have lines on here because I was talking about all this and the video didn't say, but let's jump in here to the SPX. We can see here that starting on Tuesday of last week, it was bang, bang, bang. We dropped. The bears were pushing this thing down and it looked pretty nasty, but we did find some support there on the 100. And then Friday, the bulls came in and drove this thing up. It got above all the moving averages. But what we want to watch now, being that we took out the low from January 20th, we created a new recent low. So what we have to see here, and this is why I had these lines drawn on the chart, is, are we going to set a higher low, meaning we're not going to break above the 7,000 mark that we put in on January 28th and then roll over? Or are we going to take out 7,000, set a higher high and continue to push up? And that's what we really want to watch for here this week, is what does the market do? Do we push up? Did we set a new all-time high, or do we set a lower high and start to roll over? Now, keep in mind, this pullback from the high on the 28th of January down to the low that we made on Thursday was 3.15%. Not very much at all. But also notice too that you do have this 200-day simple moving average sitting down here at 64, 69, 51. And if we're looking and talking about a true correction, that's at 10%. That would be at 63.0215. So there's quite a ways for this to fall. The bulls are not out of the woods yet. They have to set a higher high, or they will put in a lower high, and this one is going to drop down. So let's come over to the Qs, and the Qs really, big tech is struggling. You could see that they tried to set a new all-time high here on the 28th. They weren't able to do that, dropped, and this supportive trend line that was created back in September, this was September 2nd, 2025, that's been holding. Now, we did get below the 50, the 100. We found a bounce off of that trend line. Nice bullish day came in here on Friday, but keep in mind, we took out the recent low from January 20th. We were still significantly below it. And now we have to watch, just like we are on the SPX. Are we going to set a lower high and roll over? Potentially, because look, we're not that far off from the 200. We have 10% correction would be down here at 573.29. And it does have a lot of resistance overhead with the 100 and the 50, the point of control. The volume notes here on the VRVP, we are oversold quite some bit, but some optimism and enthusiasm has to come into the tech space, or this thing could start to roll over even more. And like I said at the outset of this video, NVIDIA reports next week. That's going to dictate what is going to happen with big tech. And then you take a look at Dow Jones, the DIA, Dow Jones Industrial, new all-time high on Friday. So what does this tell us? Rotation. People are continuing to rotate out of mega cap tech into Dow Jones Industrial stocks, up 12 points here. And notice we have this upper trend line resistance that this is tagged a few times and pulled back. Look for the Dow to be able to move higher, hit that upper resistance trend line before pulling back. And then maybe at that point, we'll see some of that money rotate into tech, but you can see this uptick in bull volume here. So the Dow's looking strong. And taking a look at the IWM, nice structure here, pushing up, retest, push up, retest into the 50, push up, retest into the 50. So more than likely what's going to happen here, we're going to continue to push up on IWM. Money is going to flow out of mega cap tech and into Dow Jones, IWM. So this one looks poised for a continued move higher. It's not overbought. So there is some room there on IWM. If we take a look at Bitcoin, big, massive sell down day here on Thursday. Everybody was like, Bitcoin's going to zero. And we actually made a low. We got down to 59,841.23, and then buyers stepped in. And as of right now, at the time I'm recording this, Bitcoin is up 21 100 points. Let's see if that wants to continue, but make no mistake about it. This is in a bearish trend. And for things to flip and this trend to change, you have to get a close above 97,927. That is over a 20,000 point move. There's a lot of work to do here. So just keep that in mind. This one is not out of the woods by any stretch. And just taking a look at TLT, here, we can see that when people want safety, they buy bonds. A little bit of buying came in here on Thursday and Friday. We're really just stuck in this gap that was created September 4th into the 5th. This head and shoulders pattern played out. So we're just ranging right in that gap, and you can see that. So not a strong appetite for bonds just yet. And the 10-year yield, which was above that 200-day simple moving average for some time, printed a double top and a higher high, lower high double top, crashed down below that 200, found some support off the 50. So let's see if that 10-year wants to fall more. Again, this is what dictates mortgage rates. The housing market would welcome the 10-year to fall. Taking a look at the dollar, we can see here this head and shoulders pattern played out well. And right now we are just retesting this neckline. So let's see if we want to roll over. And remember, a weak dollar is positive for stocks. And then we have the VIX. The VIX spiked pretty strongly on Thursday. It got up to 2308, but on Friday, the VIX said, nah, we're burning the sucker down. We're burning down the VIX. And we came down below the 10, found a little bit of a bounce off of the 200 and the 100. Let's see if we want to drop lower. Remember, when the VIX is lower, that allows room for stocks to push. So let's see if that one wants to continue down. And then we take a look at gold. After that massive all-time high reversal candle, big bearish engulfing, found support off the 50, pop back above the 10. This chart to me looks like we're going to get a little bit of a rest here, and watch to see if we get rotation out of precious metals like gold, silver, etc., into Bitcoin, digital gold. Can that happen? Quite possibly. And now let's hop over here to the Mag 9. Let's take a look at NVIDIA. We have a gap to fill up here at $204. We had one, two, three, four, 5 red days in a row, nearly came down and tagged the 200 SMA. The bull stepped in, pushed it above the 100, and notice that this is a support that is held 3 times. Earnings next week. Are we going to chop into the report? Will we push up into the report? Who knows? But this is not a very interesting chart. It's just sideways. And really, if you go back to July, NVIDIA's been moving sideways. It hasn't been doing a whole lot of anything. So could this just be priming for the next move up? We haven't had a strong move on earnings from NVIDIA in quite some time. Could it be this time around? We will find out next week. Broadcom filled the gap down here at $308, found support off the 200, pushed up, got above the 10, got above the 20, but it still has the 150 SMAs above, along with the point of control. Man, that's going to be a lot for it to work through. It does report earnings on March 4th, so we do have some time, and it does have this overhead gap at 395.17 to fill, because this thing gapped down off of its earnings report. But this pattern does not look very healthy to me. This looks like some kind of junior varsity head and shoulders pattern. So this one could come lower again. And that's really the trend across a lot of these big tech companies. So Tesla, double top pattern here, came down, nearly tested the 200. Here's our neckline on the double top. If we take that out and break below that 200, this thing could tumble pretty low. And right now, this is not looking very strong. In fact, I would not be surprised to see any rips on this get shorted. But that is a double top pattern. And then if we come take a look at Netflix, the price just continues to drop lower. Strong bearish trend on this. We are seeing a little bit of divergence here on the RSIs. The momentum is starting to pick up, even though the price is heading down. You do have a gap to fill on this one, down around $71. So let's see if that one wants to fill. You got the death cross here, but nothing yet says that this one is ready to go. We have to see it reclaim the 10 in order for it to show some promise, but we're just not there yet. And then Microsoft, this is a textbook double top pattern. My Lord, this is beautiful. Double top, dropped down, found support off the 200, bounced, got above the 10, and then just stuck to that 200 for a while before it rolled over And then things were looking positive, but we know that old support can turn into new resistance. And that's what the 200 did here. And what happened on earnings? Bang, it got smashed down. And we filled the gap from last May. How crazy is that? So we're back to where we were last May on Microsoft. But pay attention, you nearly have tweezer bottoms here. You have an inside candle, bullish Harami candle. This one could push, but it is still in a bearish trend. So yeah, so there's probably more downside to come here. Amazon, again, continuing with the theme of big tech getting crushed, gap down on earnings. And we closed at 210.32 on Friday. Buyers did step in after that big drop down. And Amazon really is just back to price areas where it was in 2024. So again, below all the moving averages, nothing here to say jump in on this one. You got to let it settle off before you do anything. And then Google, finally, we get a little bit of pullback on Google. We came down, we gapped down on earnings, buyers came in, but we have a bearish Harami candle here, right on that 50 bear candle closing inside a bull candle body. Let's see if this one wants to continue lower. And if we are going to fall a little bit more and rotate out of this into other big tech stocks. And then you have Meta, which gapped up on earnings. Guess what? Gave it all back. Found some support here on the 50. Let's see if this one wants to bounce. But if you just zoom out on this, again, this is an ugly looking head and shoulders pattern. We do have the supportive trend line in place here, but I would not be surprised to see this one roll over. And really the pressure on big tech is because of the spending that they're doing, their CapEx, their investment in AI. It's scaring a lot of investors because they feel that they're overspending without seeing a lot of profit from AI. But I think these minds like Zuckerberg, Musk, they know what they're doing. They know what they're talking about in terms of this build out. So we'll see, but just be mindful that pattern does exist there. You have that double bottom. Could this just be a retest of the neckline area? Quite possibly, but this one just needs to do something because it looks pretty shady at this point. And then we take a look at Apple. The head and shoulders pattern on this one played out, and you got to bounce off of the 200 EMA. We are now back above all those moving averages. This one looks like it wants to put in a new recent high. So keep an eye here on Apple to continue to push up. And in times of downturns, Apple almost serves as a flake to safety trade, which is pretty crazy to think about, being that it's a tech company, but they are. It's a company that's been around for a long time, profitable, reliable. They pay a dividend. So let's see what continues to happen there with Apple. Let's just take a look at a few more tickers. So the trade desk just continues to get pummeled. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 red days in a row before you finally got some buyers that came in here on February 4th. But oh yeah, then the sellers stepped back in, and then you had buyers come back in on Friday. This thing is beat up so badly. We did break below that $28 support, and now there's no support down until $18.34, and earnings are on tap here for the 25th. There's some extra pressure on the trade desk to the downside because they are considered a software company, and all software stocks are just getting hammered right now. So we might continue to see more downside. All I know is this, is that the trade desk better report earnings that are just amazing, or $18 is on the table here sooner rather than later. I love this stock. I don't know what it is. And I keep buying shares on the way down slowly, not big, but I think long-term, just based on the fundamentals, the balance sheet of this company, they do have an opportunity to move. And just keep in mind that this stock was once at 140. I'm not saying that it's going to get back there or that it's going to climb anytime soon, but I think that this is an overdone move, and I'll continue to watch this to see what happens. Let's just take a look at a few others. Here's Robinhood. You could see from its all-time highs, if we measure out to the lows here, it is down 53.24%, $82. Let's see if we're going to get a pop here and a retest into that 200, and then we roll over. Again, they're reporting earnings on Tuesday. Keep an eye on what Bitcoin does because that can influence it. And then when you look at the Bitcoin stocks, like MSTR, like CRCL, there's nothing about the charts that says bullish, but just from a risk reward perspective, MSTR at one point was up here at $540 some dollars. Not saying that it's going to get back there, but if it can ever reclaim a bullish trend, this one can move Nothing says that. Just keep an eye on it, because if Bitcoin eventually does start to bounce, there could be some good plays there. And the same with CRCL, stablecoin company. It is below its IPO price. Again, nothing about this chart says take a trade on it, but just keep an eye on it for whenever sentiment flips in the Bitcoin space. And then we take a look at Roku, Mr. Roku. We can see that this thing is now down below the 200. They're going to report earnings on Thursday. Last year, when they reported earnings in February, they pushed higher up into the 104 range and rolled over. And I thought when this thing closed above 108 that it had room up to 140, but it got rejected right away. So let's see what's going to happen with Roku here on earnings. Taking a look at Oracle, ORCL. Taking a look at Oracle, ORCL, we can see that there is a gap to fill down here at 127.87. And man, this thing has just gotten hammered. Head and shoulders pattern, funky looking, awkward JV looking head and shoulders pattern. But I would be interested in starting a position here if we fill this gap at 127.87. This move, this downward move is overdone in my opinion. So I will look here to potentially start accumulating some shares. It looks like it wants to come lower, and I would not be surprised to see that 127.87 price get tagged. And then Palantir got a nice little bounce on earnings, but the market said not so fast, rolled it back over, and it is now looking pretty shaky, right? And if we just measure this from its all-time high down to this recent low, it's down 38%, $79.40. But keep in mind, and I was drawing this the first time I recorded this video, that the 50 is now starting to roll down towards that 200. So watch for a death cross. This thing could come down even more. There's a gap to fill at 96.55, which could be a nice entry point to go long. But a lot of these charts are showing that there is more opportunity to the downside if things want to continue that direction. So just keep that in mind. We are not out of the woods. Or if you're a bull, you're not out of the woods yet. There could be some more weakness that comes to things. And then taking a look here at SoundHound, we're still below that supportive trend line that was a bouncing spot for quite some time. We did get some buyers that came in here on Friday. Let's see what happens when this retests up into that area around 1019 if it wants to roll over. But this company getting smoked pretty hard, not doing much of anything here as of late. And then I'm gonna look at two more charts, one being Coinbase. We could see we're back down into this area where we found support here before. We had this double top that played out nicely. Again, Bitcoin's gonna have to get rolling in order for this to move. Look how oversold this thing got. My Lord, I don't think it's never been that oversold before. So look for a little interim bounce here, but it's gonna be dependent on Bitcoin. This could be something that if it reclaims the 10 and gets back up in the 190s, it could be a nice play, because this thing was just up at $444 this past summer, but my, oh my, how the mighty have fallen. And then the last chart that I'm going to look at here, ExxonMobil. There are bullish charts out there right now, ladies and gentlemen. Exxon is just ripping higher, new all-time highs, banging up. Good for the ExxonMobil bulls. I'm not touching that. It's overbought. It's extended, but they can keep pushing higher. And then finally, what I'm watching for my day trades this week, I really do what I'm seeing here on SMCI. You've got room up here to the 100 at 39.12, 39.67. Nice close here on Friday. We're above the 50, so I'll be watching this for some day trades. Boeing closed above that 100 SMA monthly, which it hasn't done in quite some time. I was waiting for a retest. So I was originally going to look for swing trades here, but now I'm just going to day trade the snot out of this guy. So it is on my list. Apple, I'm watching too, just because it's showing some strength here in the tech sector, despite all the weakness in all the other Mag 9 stocks. T-Mobile's another one. It just really moved sideways here. I'm going to wait for a retest into the 200. I'll look for some day trades to the upside there. APLD is another one here. Every time it's hit that 100, we get a nice bounce higher. And so we just tested that 100 here. So I'm going to be looking for some upside to $42 on that one. And then finally, Caterpillar. This has been a super strong stock as well, just like ExxonMobil. So I'm going to watch for little dips here and look to trade those retests higher on day trades. And those are the 6 tickers I'm watching for day trades this week. So there you have it. This is the second time that I recorded this video. Hopefully this one actually recorded. It says recording up there in the top. But I appreciate you guys supporting the channel. Let me know down below, what is the ticker that you are watching this week that you are ready to crush in terms of day trades? There's going to be opportunities both ways, bullish and bearish. The way I see this playing out, Monday, Tuesday, I see bullish continuation higher. We're going to continue to push up. Wednesday, when we get non-farm payrolls and the unemployment rate, that's going to dictate where we go from there. And then Friday with inflation, that's really going to put some pressure on the market either way. So Monday, Tuesday, looking bullish. Wednesday, I'm going to be cautious, back off, watch what happens with the data, and then adjust my approach from there. And then keep in the back of your mind next week, NVIDIA reports on Wednesday. But anyway, I appreciate you guys supporting the channel. As always, make it a great day. Honor the moment. And as always, be grateful. Take care, everyone.